name is Richard L. Bomaster.
Where are you from, Richard?
Originally the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a small town called Iron River.
Okay. And where did you go to high school?
Iron River High School.
Okay. And tell us about your path into the military.
Well, my father was in the Navy in the Second World War on an LST. And he described to me riding on that ship and the waves that he was on and things, and I didn't really want to be in the Navy. So I graduated from high school in 1965, and things were going pretty hot and heavy over in the Vietnam place. And I graduated from a medical lab technician school in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was in turn going to another school for radio technology over at the University of Minnesota, but I had to have a student classification for my draft board. At that time, you still could get drafted. I was not able to obtain that, so I went down and talked to a couple of recruiters, and the Army said that I'd only have to enlist for 3 years. So I went into the Army to be a medical lab and x-ray technician.
Okay.
1967, I believe.
Where did you do your training at?
I got my I went into the federal building in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I got sworn in, and they put us on a train and sent us to Fort Lewis, Washington. So I went into the basic and AIT with a large group of Minnesota men.
Okay.
And I took my basic and AIT out there.
And then once you finished that training, how soon did you head over to Vietnam?
Well, they gave me some more tests, and they said, "Rick, you're a pretty intelligent fellow. How would you like to go to officer candidate school?" And I said, I never considered that. So I called up my dad and I said, "Dad, what do you think about me going to officer candidate school?" He said, "Son, there's a place in life where a man starts to make his own decisions, and I think this is as good a place as any for you to start." So I thought about it a little bit, and I took the op and went to the Artillery Officer Candidate School in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
What was that like going?
Wow, what a demanding lifestyle. You had everything had to be in the right place, all the buttons right, and all the everything in your footlocker had to be. I mean, it was pretty precise when I was in basic and AIT, but they were really fussy over there, and they basically wanted you to learn how to follow an order before you started giving them. So it was interesting tour of training. And they taught me how to do survey work and how to put a artillery piece on a survey position. They taught me how to read a map and to be able to call back to a fire direction center with the coordinates of a place that I was shooting at and direct my fire in on that. It was interesting a program to get involved in, and they even had me shooting artillery out of an aeroplane.
Oh wow! So you became an officer.
Second lieutenant.
Second lieutenant, and then once you achieved that rank, did they tell us what happened?
Well, I got sent to an Honest John rocket battalion. Now, that might not understand what that is, but that's a large rocket on the back of a rail on a I think it was a 1-ton truck. And that was just like an artillery piece. You'd lift that rail up and left and right, and you'd fire that rocket, and just before that rocket left that rail, it spun itself. So I was in that rocket battalion, and the trucks were getting so old that they almost had to have made with a blacksmith shop. So I was there, and And then I was able to get myself into a medical lab technician's job in the hospital with an artillery OCS.
Okay.
That was an interesting accomplishment. So I started working in the lab, and I got that letter in the mail one day. Rick, you are going to Vietnam. And I had a little less than a year left in the military. But being that I signed that paper that I could be sent in, you know, if it was needful, I had to get ready to go over there. So I got a month's leave and everything else, and got everything prepared, and got sent over to Vietnam.
And when you arrived in Vietnam, where did you arrive at?
I came in first in Da Nang, and then they put me out to a, I think it was Quang Ngai City, where they did the introduction stuff and everything. But me being an officer, I didn't get led around by the hand to one place, to the other place, to the other place. So I took my time, and I was in no hurry because I wasn't really interested. I wasn't really a gung-ho trooper about going out to the war, which I knew I was going to do. And so it took me a week or so to get accomplished. And the commander saw me one day and he says, "Mr. Lieutenant Bomaster, you're a familiar face around here." He says, "I don't know what you're doing, but you better get it done tomorrow." So then I had to go out in the field and got to meet the men that I worked with. And I had an assistant that was from Kentucky. And then, as I was telling, my radio man showed up one day and got off the helicopter, and he was my second cousin, of all things. And that was quite a shocking thing. And we worked together, and I was actually over in country for 43 days. And a rocket-propelled grenade hit that personnel carrier I was on, and I woke up in Valley Forge Army Hospital in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, 18 days later.
Wow. So, the day you were hit, do you have any memory of that day?
Well, we were smoking and joking, as the old term goes, and somebody had just told a real funny joke, and I was really laughing awful hard. And I woke up in Pennsylvania. And even yet today, that's all I remember. I read the report on what happened. Evidently, my cousin had gotten down inside the carrier where I sat up on the hatch door for the driver. So what happened to me is I had the shrapnel and so forth splash up on my side, whereas my cousin was hit with that fire from that propelled grenade as it penetrated that vehicle, and it threw him up through the door and out on the ground. And evidently I was trying to save his life and directing fire on the enemy, so they say, and so they gave me a Bronze Star with a V for valor and a Purple Heart because of all the wounds I sustained and everything. So.
And your cousin was killed.
Yeah, he was a DU, right almost without. Right as that thing exploded, it hit him in his face and his chest and everything else. So.
What was his name?
Stanley Ryala.
Okay.
He's on the Vietnam Wall up in Washington, D.C.
Wow. And tell us about your injuries.
Well, I was struck in my left temple. There's a small skull penetration that went through and interfered with the optic nerve in my left eye. I was struck in my left shoulder, and it started hitting here, went halfway down my back, hit me in the hand, took half of my knuckle off and across the tendons in my arm, hit me on the left kneecap, went around my kneecap and down my leg, and the bang from the explosion going off messed up my ears, and I've been wearing hearing aids for 40-some years.
Wow. And you are blind in your left eye?
Blind in my left eye, yes, sir.
Okay. Wow. We're thankful that you're here. So, 18 days later, when you came to in Minnesota,
Valley Forge, Pennsylvania.
How long would you have been? How long were you hospitalized after that?
It took about 6 months because of all the injuries that I have I got pneumonia, and they had to make an incision in my chest, which went around pretty close to my backbone, and they went in and cleaned my right lung out where all the infection was and everything. And that was a rough trip too. But the day I woke up and I looked out, my mother and father were sitting there, and my dad says, "Rick, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Dad, what are you doing?" I thought I was still in Vietnam, you know. And an interesting story about how my mother and dad got there. They passed the hat around in a football game at Iron River, Michigan, and got enough money for my mom and dad to come out and visit me in a hospital in Pennsylvania. I thought that was a very notable thing for small town people that do those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And after, were you discharged after that 6 months, or did you stay in longer in the Army?
A friend of mine talked to me and he said, "Rick, the intelligent thing for you to do is to go down and extend yourself in the military for another 12 months. And in so doing, they're going to give you a boost in your rank." I was a first lieutenant. They made me a captain, or an 03 in the Army. And shortly after that, they retired me on a disability anyway. So out of that year, I served a month and 23 days. So it was a beneficial thing by listening to the wisdom of a friend.
Yep. And how do you feel personally about your experience in Vietnam? I know you were wounded and your cousin was killed. What are your thoughts on
war is a tragedy. I don't care if it's in the Middle East or in Vietnam or in America, it's a tragedy. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I've really just taken what's happened to me and just taken it right in stride. I'm very fortunate with a skull penetration. I haven't had any seizure problem, which usually follows that. And I've been living pretty good, considering December I will be 70 years old and still functioning fairly well. I really don't have any animosity about it. When your country asks you to serve, you go serve. That's what I did.
And today, I know in your generation, the response of a lot of people wasn't very nice to Vietnam veterans. Today it's better. So how does it feel today to be a Vietnam veteran?
Well, I didn't go through that problem. You know, I was in that hospital for 6 months. A lot of the nastiness, some of those guys met in airports, people spitting on them and all these other things, I never had that happen to me. And I was very blessed like that. But I'm glad that we can tell those young men and women that are coming back where they can find the help and how they can get that help that they so desperately need, because I was not aware of all the help that I have today outside of the help of a good veterans representative that helped me out. I mean, it took some time, but they helped me out to get some help for what I really need help with. I appreciated that.
Yep. Are there any other experiences or anything else you want to share with us on this interview?
Well, I had trouble with alcohol when I came home.
Okay.
For about a year I had a real problem with it, but I've been able to shake that off too. And I try to get in a veterans group that doesn't consume that stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't have any problems with other people doing it, but I warn them of the consequences, you know.
Sure.
So it was a difficult thing for me to do, but I'm glad that's over 40-some years ago. So.
Right. Well, Richard, we are so thankful that you're with us today, and that you function very well, and even with your injuries, that, you know, we're thankful for what you did for our country. So just want to thank you for doing this interview, and look forward to sharing it with everybody.
I appreciate this office, and I appreciate the people here, and I appreciate the help that they are still giving me for things that are still coming up that are new that I didn't know about, and I appreciate that very much.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks.